make sure you've got your clouds up all the time in order, because the children get to know where they are in the room, so don't move them around. Now, the reason that we're doing monster mapping is because, of course, your explicit teaching of the code, which is part of your phase 2 routine, only covers a fraction of what they need to be able to use for reading and spelling, for decoding and encoding. So it's kind of, these are used to give them the skills and concepts so they understand what they're doing and to give them a really good start. Monster mapping. So if you've ever got a word you're not sure of, well, the easiest thing, to be honest, is go to something like Macmillan or phonemic.chart.com, type the word in, and you'll see the IPA symbols. So you'll see it come up, and of course the IPA symbols link with your monsters. So once you can see the symbols, you know which monsters there are. They're the speech sounds. Now, I want you to make sure that the children get the story. So the story of the speech sound king and his code. And what he did was he had to send messages to the prince far away, and they created a code between each other. So every speech sound they used in the words, they would think, well, if I take a picture of that speech sound in the air, what could it look like in that word? And they put their code in what we call the code mapping book, which is also the dictionary. So these link with the king's way of saying the words, not necessarily yours. And I'm going to give you an example. So a teacher just said, oh, can I just check about monster mapping the word transform? Now, if you look at the IPA, you'll see, well, let's do the process, because the process is what's invaluable. The word does not change. The word is always going to be spelt like that. That doesn't change. But it's this discussion and the inquiry learning and the process of SSP that means that child doesn't have to memorize it or learn rules or what have you. They can actually understand it and start to really look for patterns. Brains love patterns. So that's the word transform. So we go through the process, don't we? So we think transform, we say it, transform. So we can really think about, what does my mouth do? What can I hear? When does my tongue change, etc. Then we think about duck hands, and the duck hands show where are the smallest units of speech sounds, called the phonemes. T, a, s. Now I'm going to rub this off because some of you are going to get confused by the letters, and I want you to focus on the phonemes. I want you to focus on just the phonemic awareness. So the first part is just phonemic awareness. Transform. T, a, s, o, transform. Then we make sure that we do it with the lines. I might struggle a little bit with this word fitting the monster cards on, but let's try. T, a, z, or s, or and that's the whole thing. Once you start to do that, you start to think, oh, hold on, what was the sound there? So you might know how many sounds, but what are they? And is that how I say it? Or is that how the king said it? And that's what we're investigating. So transform. So then we play it. T, a, s, or just to check. So this is all your phonemic awareness, or your isolation of speech sounds and segmenting, which is where are they, and then blending it together into the word. Then the numbers. T, a, s, or So the brain loves it. It's so nice and organized. So I would know where all the speech sounds sit in that word. It's like we're creating a jigsaw. T, a, s, or Now you're going to have, in different countries, like for example, some accents, some children might go transform. T, e, s, or some people might think it's transform. T, a, s, form. And they're the things we're thinking about. America, transform. T, a, s, or so they would have actually had 9 phonemes there. So we think about the accent and they get to that stage, and then they think about the monsters, and they put the monsters on generally with regards to how they say it. That's why we all stop at that stage and we actually have a look at the word, and then we have a look at the IPA and we think, how did the king do it? Okay, and then we look at it from that perspective, and the children also then get very interested in etymology. Anyway, so what I've done is I've put out the monsters. Now this card, remember, if you've only got one monster pack, it's £15, sorry, 50, I'm in England again, 15 Australian dollars per pack, and that's every phoneme. So every monster represents a phoneme and all the spelling choices. So on the back, you've got all the spelling choices for that phoneme. So that's your most commonly used one. That's the one we used to look at explicitly. Remember I said about the explicit teaching? So we'll look at that here. But what matters is, it's not the only one, is it? Look, there are 4 there. So we're going to think transform. Let's put our monsters on. T. Well, I know T is going to go there. So if you were an Australian would put the air there, mightn't they? Air, transform, transform. So they might put the air there. I'm doing it how the king does, so let's just put it back. I'm just going to do it how the king does, but I want you to be aware. So that doesn't matter they put it like that, because that is what they say, and that's absolutely fine. And this is an inquiry process. The word doesn't change. It's how we get to there, so that we not only always spell that correctly for life, but we also recognize patterns and understand, oh, that's why, and what have you. So so let's say they did put the s on there. That's when, as a partnership, you know, person next to them, they say, oh, I didn't put that there, I put the z, and they talk about it. That's the key thing, talk. And it's not just talk with the teacher and the student, it's talk between students. That's so important. And they keep going back, so they keep thinking about that segmenting of the phonemes. Well, I'm going to change that because I know it is a Okay, so then we play it. Am I happy with that? And as a group we decided we're happy with that. Okay, so that's when you either show them the word so they can see it constructed if it's not a word they've seen before, or you get that they might choose, right, well, which t am I going to put here? Remember, they can look all the time, well, which are the choices? There are all the choices. And again, think about your explicit teaching. How many pictures or how many representations of t do you actually cover when you're covering the first code level, or when you're doing your explicit teaching? But that's all the ones that the children and I have discovered, or teachers across the country have discovered so far. And every time the children discover a new one, as long as they can find it in 2 or more words, it gets added to the cloud. So the children across Australia and now the world are helping me with these monsters and the pictures of their sounds. So we've got, so let's say we had it on here, then we would, let's write it on here, transform. And of course we've also talked about what it means. No point just code mapping a word if you don't know what it means. So and they keep going until they've got because it all maps, doesn't it? I'm going to get myself into a mess here. So the O-R there is the or there. Let's just move them up. Got no space. Or, and remember, there's never any letters left over. Every letter is used, every phoneme is used. So that's transform. Then have a look at it. Try and find it ideally in a book, but make sure that it's meaningful. Hope that helps.